for us is really an important and unique opportunity to reflect on the fact that so often there are research done everywhere in the world, and we're all about evidence-based advocacy. But it's rare that we get an occasion to look back about research that have been done, published, released, and there's a tendency in the sector to move on to something else. But disrupting harm was such a critical research piece, unique in the world, involving 7 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. So getting a chance to look back several months, close to a year afterwards, and say, so what? How is it used today? What kind of changes have occurred? And maybe what are the missing linkages in conducting such research and really having an impact in the way we work and address sexual exploitation of children? Primarily, we have 23 ECPAT members. These are civil society organizations of different size and scale, but present in 16 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, some of which are national coalition bringing together over 200 community-based organizations. So membership of the ECPAT network is very diverse, but bringing those members together is sort of the first audience, the first level of participation in this workshop. Also importantly, because of the partnership around disrupting harm, we have UNICEF Innocenti Research Center from Florence, we have Interpol from Lyon in France also attending, and we have the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, which in turn they also involve and invited close to 15 of their implementing partners in the region who are responsible for acting upon the results of disrupting harm. And finally, we have, because we're based in Kenya and Nairobi, there are a lot of child protection agencies and actors, even from the governmental sectors, who are involved in the discussion because Kenya is our host, and because Kenya is also a landmark country where the level of engagement and multi-sectoral approaches to this problem is the most sort of prominent. So it was very rich to get their views also taken into account in this conversation. Sexual exploitation of children is a moving target. So it keeps changing, it's evolving. Disrupting harm was a key contribution in giving a sense of the prevalence of the problem in this region, but also the different manifestation, the level of harm caused by sexual exploitation of children. So now that we have that data, the challenge is to say, are we up to the challenge? Are we changing, improving, adapting our prevention strategy, our response mechanism? Are we doing it at all levels, both very institutional, policy, national plan of action, legislation level, and also close to the child, the prevention mechanism, the level of trust that children need in order to disclose when things are happening, or that they know how to better equip themselves in an environment online that is made safe for them. So these are the kind of findings that we're trying to sort of play with to make sure that with the evidence we have, now it's time to act. ECPAT International, it's a network, we're strong in research and advocacy. It's a matter of making sure that the actors are not neglecting any dimension of the issue. Sometimes the role of ECPAT International is to praise and congratulate actors for addressing maybe some dimension of the picture. So there might be legislative reform we've heard in some countries that are stepping up to the challenge. Brilliant. So congratulating, relevant stakeholders for that. But it's also always never to forget about the neglected aspect of the conversation. So we were hearing also maybe that the technological dimension of things, the regulation around internet companies, social media platforms is not at the moment at the level in this region to reflect the changes or the data that we have. So it's an example of the role of ECPAT to just also raise the hand and say, great for this, but don't forget about that other dimension. So it's making sure that we're agile as a community of practice and approach it from all angles. You can have, for instance, with police services, specialized units detecting, withdrawing child sexual abuse material, and that's very important. But equally important from the policing services is to have community-based police services that build trust with the community, that enable reporting and action at that level. What was important with Disrupting Harm was the fact that it was owned by many. ECPAT might have been the lead in implementing this, but UNICEF was critical and was really leading the implementation of many dimensions of the data collection, equally important with Interpol. And then the governments were key actors in the whole production, so they owned the data. And we could see when the reports were released in the event, the launch, it was a full audience of civil society organization, media, government official, private sectors as well. So that sort of collective view of the diagnosis and then examining all the recommendations that were included in the report and obtaining commitments from those different actors during the launch was critical. Now the issue is to say, are we following up on those commitments, on those recommendations? And because we're a civil society movement, it's also to empower civil society organizations to play their role as watchdog and praise the good things, highlight lessons learned and good practices, but also sometimes, criticizing or inviting for more action on the aspect that seems to be getting less attention in this overall picture. It's a challenging world when it comes to accessing resources and having long-term strategy that are truly implemented. I believe that civil society organizations are really critical in making sure that whatever good intention, policy, different sort of visions and strategies are reaching the communities, that children see the effect of those intentions. And in that sense, the community-based organizations are absolutely critical at that level. We need both. So it's great to see changes and improvement in strategies, policies, and legislation, but it also means that the children themselves must see a change in the factors that prevented them from disclosing and reporting. And for that, civil society organizations are much closer to the community level. They can see what's happening, they can raise the alarm, and they can support changes in that respect. It's been difficult because many of those civil society organizations are not necessarily valued for that expertise, do not necessarily have access to resources and the means required to be up to the challenge. But I think also Disrupting Harm raised the profile of the issue and generated more interest. So it's a matter of making sure that we're not losing the momentum, and civil society organizations are put at the center of that strategy forward. I think it's also very exciting that we can devote an entire day of our discussion among the 4 days of this workshop to access to justice. And so really linking the voices of children, the point of view of survivors that ECPAT has documented across the world, including in this region, is really critical in being able to say, we know that access to justice is a challenge basically globally, certainly in Eastern and Southern Africa. But there are concrete, simple things that can be done that would really change the experience of children when they try to access justice. So really building a link between the voices of children and their experience with the data from Disrupting Harm is also enabling a different approach, let's say, to address systemic problems in access to justice. So that's also a critical part of our conversation.